This is your home for the most competitive football in the state of Michigan. Your home for the most comprehensive coverage week in and week out. This is the Mac Attack with Zack and Zack.
Zack, a good Saturday morning to you here from the basement. Week 2 now in our back pocket. And boy, did we learn a few things last night. My goodness.
The red is looking a little different than it was on Wednesday when we spoke last, Zack.
And how surprised are we this morning by you saying that? Like, I mean,
I'm pretty surprised. I thought we had a clear leader in the red that changed after yesterday. And I am also really surprised by what we're seeing from Grosse Pointe South, the newest member of the MAC Red. They are showing that they are here to compete.
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
no doubt about it.
Well, when I talked to the Grosse Pointe South folks before the season, one of the things that they mentioned was that, look, they felt the pressure when they went from blue to white. And they were successful in the blue. They were successful in the white. The expectations for Grosse Pointe South were not going to change by them entering the MAC Red. And I thought to myself, I'm like, all right.
That's positive thinking. Way to put on a brave face.
You should, not even that, you should feel that way, right? Like, if you don't show up every day expecting to be able to compete and win, you might as well just stay home.
Yeah.
And so I love this mentality. But like you said, I was like, okay, like, that's what I want to hear. That's what I expected to hear. Let's see if you can actually do it. And look, I know we're only 2 weeks in, but for them to be at the top 2-0, they're not alone. But I'm impressed. Zach, let's run down the scores really quickly. In our game of the week, Stevenson at Dakota. Titans hold off the Cougars 12-7. Romeo at Chippewa Valley. Big Reds roll over the Bulldogs 37-17. And we talked about Grosse Pointe South. They were at Eisenhower. Blue Devils impressed. They beat Ike 17-7. So, Zach, that means Stevenson and Grosse Pointe South both 2-0. Dakota, Chippewa Valley are tied third at 1-1. And then at the bottom, Romeo and Eisenhower 0-2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little more surprised by the shakeup of Ike falling to 0-2. I thought they were going to get their first win of the season here. Grosse Pointe South, very surprising. Romeo, Chippewa Valley, they have shown that they are an offensive powerhouse. I mean, this is, even though they lost last week, they came back in impressive fashion, 37 points. I mean, that's an offensive juggernaut.
Yeah,
that's Chippewa Valley football.
Yeah, no, it is. It is, and we'll get into this in a minute. But Zach, I looked back at my notes from last night. Well, and by the way, hats off again to all the broadcasting crews out there. I was able to watch all three games.
At once.
I mean, it was something, man. It was something that growing up around here, and really in a lot of places where you could have high school football on the radio, on a webcast for audio, but being able to incorporate the live video feed and be able to watch it. I said it before. I'm going to keep saying it because I really hope that this MHSAA one-year waiver becomes a permanent rule. Because I got to tell you, this is a good thing for football across the state of Michigan. It's an improvement. It's good for the game. There's no reason to go back. Look, if you want to nickel and dime, charge everybody $50 to buy the MHSAA license and let them at it. There are 300 schools.
Money well spent, I would imagine. And
I don't even think they should have to pay that. But I'm just saying if they've got to get their,
don't put that thought in their head.
Well, but
you just cost yourself $50.
You're telling me not to put the thought of money into somebody that runs a sports organization.
It's already there.
Hilarious.
It's
already get a rim
there.
shot over here. Do we have that button?
No, but that it makes it so much more fun to be able to, because there are people like us out there who need to pay attention to all these games simultaneously. Yes, there's nothing like being at a football game on a Friday night. I will not take that away from anybody, but we don't have that option right now.
And I said it last week, and I'm just going to keep repeating myself. I don't care. I don't think you're going to see a drop in attendance. There are still people that are only going to care. Right now, if I could go to a game, would I? Probably, because I love being there. But being able to sit back and watch all three of them for somebody like you or me, super beneficial. And at a time when we're seeing local sports media dwindle and get smaller and coverage get tougher, the ability to have one or two people covering multiple games without being in a different spot it's a really big deal. And so again, I hope the MHSAA takes note of that. Zach, very quickly, you and I were 2-1 in our picks last week. We had
I don't know if that's true, Zach.
Wait.
I think it was 1 and 2.
Are we 1 and 2?
I think we're 1 and 2.
I'm all over the place, man. I made these notes at like 6 in the morning. Hold on. No, you're right.
Because I think we both took Ike over Grosse Pointe South, and we both took Stevenson.
It's funny
to lose to Dakota.
I'm such a loser.
You just wanted to make yourself look better.
Well, hey, I was 3-0 last week. I don't need to do anything there.
I'm not looking too solid on my picks. I'm going 1 and 2 in both weeks.
But wait, so like I said, I'm like we were 2-1, and then I look and I'm like, I don't see 2 correct answers on my subsequent.
That's all right, Zach. You're watching 3 games at the same time.
I did, and
then trying to do a podcast at 8 a.m. the next day about it. There's a little bit of grace period here.
Would you believe there were moments when because I had the sound on for all 3 of them, and I could almost I could hear enough to where if something was happening, I could silence the other 2.
Sure.
But there was a couple times when I kind of got lost in the sauce, and I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what was going on. But again, it was regardless of my now 2 mistakes. I had earlier tweeted that Eisenhower was 1-1, but our Bryce Tinson pointed out that was also incorrect. So, but again,
it's good to have somebody checking you,
especially
Zach,
me, because
I can't. Don't leave that up to me. We need somebody who's a little younger and sharper doing that for us.
Goodness. All right, Zach, let's get into these games here. Let's start with the game of the week. Obviously, Stevenson at Dakota. That game finishes 12-7. Stevenson 2-0. And Zach, after squeaking into the playoffs last year and proving the point that it doesn't matter how you get in, as long as you get there, you've got a chance, right? For those of you that like to play poker, it's chip in a chair. It's all you need, nothing more. And they have continued. And look, for them, it has been ugly. But it's funny because I spoke with. We communicate with the coaches frequently and have for, last year, this year. And I remember Coach Newcomb telling me, we are a defensive team. And then I watched offense last year. I'm like, yeah, sure you are. As they're running all over the place.
Tell me again about your defense.
Right. But the defense was good last year. But this year, you've really seen the defense play well. I mean, I was watching. I had that game on the big screen, right? And so you watch Caden Sloan and you watch DJ Stepney, and you see, especially in Stepney, but don't sleep on Caden Sloan. He's the touchdown machine. I mean, they put him in the Wildcat. He threw a touchdown pass last night. It was negated, and that actually ended up being the difference here. But you look and you see college caliber athletes.
Oh, for sure.
The way that Stepney moves, his size. I mean, I've seen that on college fields before. But here's the thing: they were able to drive, but they could never break through. Yeah. And the credit goes to the Stevenson defense. I mean, they've really been, to me, the biggest surprise to this point in the season is the Stevenson Titan defense.
Yeah, and Dakota, a team that put up big points last week against Chippewa Valley.
29 points?
We saw that they only put up 7 points, and the thing that's a little misleading about this was not an offensive touchdown. That was a punt block for a touchdown that gave Dakota their 7 points and gave them even an opportunity to win that game.
They had a missed field goal. They had that negated touchdown inside the 5-yard line. I mean, you can't miss on those opportunities, and Dakota did.
Yeah, and so no offense coming from no offensive scores from Dakota's team last night.
And so, you look at the score and you say 12-7, right? It looks, it's ugly, even if you get the 12 and win.
Sure.
But I mean, you look at Biagio Madonna, man, 10 for 17, 159 yards. He threw a touchdown pass. And I'll tell you what, Zach, that touchdown pass came right before the half. It was a huge gamble, and it was a dime. It was gorgeous. Yeah. And I mean, you look at the way that their offense. See, what you're seeing from Stevenson, Zach, this is what Eisenhower did last year. Their offense was able to do enough to reward the defense and the way they play. See, that's the way I look at Eisenhower. And this, I don't want to be too harsh, but Eisenhower's offense is not honoring the work and the skill of the defense. Because, look, Eisenhower's defense is still playing really well, but they're 0-2 because their team has scored 10 points. We'll get to that in a minute. The offense and the defense right now for the Titans are complementing each other. It's not pretty, but it doesn't matter.
They're winning. They're winning games.
What's pretty in the red? I mean, come on.
It's football. Nothing should be pretty. Let's just go out there and play football and let's get a win. And that's what Stevenson is doing.
Yeah.
And you're right. it may not be the an offensive juggernaut. They're not putting up big points either week, but I like the way this team is clicking because we're constantly talking about, well, if Ike's offense just catches up to their defense, they'll be okay. Well, you can't guarantee that any week because look, this week they went out and they let up 17 points. It doesn't matter. You need this teamwork. The defense and offense have to be on the same page. They have to be consistent. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to win these games in the red.
Yeah, and you look at one of the things I love about high school football is the two-way star, right? You don't see it a ton, though. Growing up here in Michigan in the 90s, the great Charles Woodson was the original not the original, but I mean the greatest of the two-way stars, right? Winning the Heisman Trophy going both ways. But in high school football, I look at Stevenson, the Jordans, right? Ramsey and Kwiatkowski. Those two, if you look at the rushing statistics, the receiving statistics, and the defensive statistics for Stevenson, those two names at the top.
Yeah.
These are a pair of 3-star recruits. These kids can play, and they are showing out right now for Stevenson. And again, a good night for Biagio Madonna, in the pocket. Look, final take here for me, Zach. Stevenson's good. This is a really good football team.
For sure.
I had them at 2 coming in. Spoiler alert, I'm going to have them at 1 coming into next week. There's just no
Why
ifs,
wouldn't
ands.
you?
I don't know. Well, because we're going to talk about Grosse Pointe South in a second. But to me, the argument for Stevenson is superior. The offense needs to continue to pick it up for Stevenson, but I expect that. And for Dakota, this one was kind of a head scratcher, man. Like if my takeaway for Dakota, I don't know what it is. I mean, it's first of all, it's less mistakes, right?
Yeah.
They had 2 turnovers and missed opportunities. That's what it is. The 2 turnovers plus they left 10 points on the board on offense. You lose by 5. That's it.
Yeah, and look at what Stevenson did. No turnovers.
Clean.
Yeah.
Good point.
They went 2 for 2 on 4th down. So when they went for it, they got it.
You want to talk
third
about
down wasn't great. Third down wasn't great for either team.
But I was going to say they Stevenson was 2 for 10 and 2 for 11 for Dakota. I mean, 4 of 20. Like I said, it was an ugly game, and
we're going off of stats from Huddle. So if anybody is yelling at their radio right now,
everybody yells at Huddle though. I think if you follow high school football, you know that yelling at Huddle is like a thing.
So that's where we're getting our numbers from. In case we're wrong on anything right now.
Zach, before I go any further though, I know that Stevenson scored when they had to and did enough, and there were no turnovers. But I mean, I will point out that Dakota's defense played much better than it did a week ago. So I don't want to totally slough off Dakota here because again, the defense was good again.
I agree, and Dakota could have easily won this game.
You can make the argument that they should have won this game.
Absolutely. So
ultimately, Stevenson should have because they did, but the opportunity was there.
Should have did.
I went to college. So, but no, Zach, you're right. That if you are Dakota, that's why I said it's a head scratcher.
For sure.
You watch the film and it's just that's gonna be one of those ones where Greg Bauer and his dudes are just gonna be kind of not horrified, but just like you just shake your head and you go.
I'm putting this game tape on and I'm making this a learning lesson going into the rest of the season because Dakota's they're 1-1, but let's not forget they're still a really good team in the red. They've been our pick of the week for the last 2 weeks in a row now. But I wouldn't sell them short just because of this loss against Stevenson.
No, my opinion of Dakota has not changed much. What really happened in that game only was my thought on Stevenson.
Yeah.
Right. Dakota didn't drop any in my book. Maybe in the power rankings, but as far as like what my overall expectation for them, it hasn't changed a ton. I give Stevenson a few more mental points in my own head because of what I saw there, and I liked it.
Offense just has to get a little more going because you can't have no offensive scores and expect to win games.
So, Zach, the winner of that game was guaranteed to go 2-0. The winner of the next game was guaranteed to be 0-2. Romeo at Chippewa Valley. Chippewa Valley looked slow to start, but I mean they rolled. They absolutely rolled. They win 37-17. And Zach, I went back, I looked at my notes, and I had a note in the first quarter for Chip, and it said, this Chippewa offense is unrecognizable. And in the moment, I was correct. You know, and Scott Merchant said it this morning to me. You know, we took a punch from a really good Romeo team, and I liked the way my guys responded.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's what you want.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing. And both teams in the first quarter, both teams took punches to the mouth, but only one of them knew what to do after it happened.
Who got on the board first? Because I know it was 7-3 in the first quarter.
Romeo scored first.
Romeo scored first.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, you know, and again, it was 7-3, I believe. There was a field goal from Chippewa Valley before the touchdown. You know, and so here's a couple thoughts. One, for Romeo, ultimately, the injuries are really starting to become a problem. It happened last week, and they had a handful again this week, and that includes Ty Messner. I hope Romeo's quarterback's okay. He took a shot right on the Romeo sideline, and that was one of those things where he stood up, and you know he was a little wobbly, and I thought, okay. Then he took a knee, and I was like, ooh,
yeah.
You know, and again, look, that's not, I only can comment on what I saw from my living room.
Sure.
I have no idea how he feels. All I'm saying is, I hope he's okay, because for a moment there, by that point though, Romeo was already in deep trouble. But you know, after I made that note for Chip, I mean, man, that offense, they just exploded. And I'll tell you what, Zach, there's this guy named Schuster, and boy, I feel like, man, I have seen this before.
Yeah, where have we seen this before?
Yeah, but now it's Ryan Schuster, 4 touchdown passes last night.
Huge. And let's not sell Chippewa Valley short. They were putting up points last week, even in a loss.
They have 57 points through 2 games.
That's what we expect to see.
Yeah.
And even when, you know, early on, could you say their back was up against the wall? Maybe a little bit. Romeo's had. You
don't want to go in 2, so you feel you go into the game feeling like your back's up against the wall, right?
Yeah, to a certain degree, I guess you're right. But I mean, this is a Romeo team that's up early. You know what I mean? They're getting up early, and then something is happening, and they're just not able to respond. It
seems to happen in the midway through the second half or through the second quarter. Excuse me, going in towards halftime. There's like this.
Yeah, and they just don't bounce back. I mean, Chippewa Valley just did not look back after that.
No,
it was
hammer down.
And you know, watching the game yesterday, it was, you know, I did like the St. Clair can run the ball. He had we were all texting, and there was this moment. If you saw the play, the leap and the spin, and it was just like
that was a Madden video game.
Yeah, this kid can run the ball, and it's like, you know, I'd like to see more from him. You know what I mean?
We need to see more. No. We need to see more of it. We need to see more of it. You got to Romeo's got to find a way to get him in space. They've got to find a way to get him in space, and they should be able to. You know, that's one of the things that I'm watching this Romeo team, and I said again, we don't know as far as Messner and any type of injury goes, but like I watch him compared to Austin Miller, and with all due respect, you see a better pocket presence. You have a bigger kid, a bigger arm. And his ability to hang back in there and make a play, and he's got guys like Braza, and he's got guys like St. Clair. I don't understand why they can't stretch it wide and then use that to get a guy like St. Clair. And I don't understand what. There's something there that's not allowing that to loop all the way through, because you have the components, and maybe it's the offensive line. I'm not trying to single anybody out. You lose as a team, you win as a team, but. You know, you have these opportunities and you have these players, and it just doesn't seem like you can make them fit the way you want to and the way you need them to. Well, and so I'm concerned.
Well, you know, I think that they're still trying to find their identity a little bit.
Which is weird because, like, the Romeo football identity. Well, I guess maybe I'm not being fair. I guess to me, like, you're trying to find their own specific identity as this 2020 team, right?
Well,
like,
I think they did make some adjustments in the offensive line there, and I think it worked to their advantage. I think there was an improvement, but I think we're going to see a team here that is just going to have to make these little subtle changes week in and week out until they find what works, because it's obviously not right now.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to make some changes, and this team, they need a little more energy, I think. I didn't see a lot of energy on the football field last night.
Which is so unusual for.
But it happens. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, this is a weird weird set of times. We've only known for like the last 4 weeks now that we were going to have football. I mean, I give them a pass just for that alone. But this is still a season, and
you're 0-2 going into Ike week.
Let's figure out how to win by the time we get to playoffs, right?
For Chippewa Valley, and again, I'm not saying that they've punched their ticket to a deep playoff run, but we talk about Romeo trying to figure out who they are, what they want to do. Look, it looks like to me at Romeo's expense last night, Chippewa Valley figured it out.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
For sure.
You get the balance in the backfield of Zion Mitchell and Cephas Harris, the another one from the Harris family.
So many familiar names here. There's this kind of I don't want to call it a dynasty.
Legacy.
But it's legacy. There you go. It feels
dynasty was a soap opera. Legacy sounds much. But between Zion Mitchell and Trey Harris, and then you look at Maddox Altamirano, Quillen Housey, and then certainly they went with 2 quarterbacks to start the season. But Ryan Schuster threw 4 touchdown passes last night. I'm pretty sure they're not going to switch back anytime soon.
Right.
And so it looks like that for Chippewa Valley, that they have. I said at the beginning of the season I have questions, and I thought that Chippewa Valley probably had the answers. And, it turns out that it looks like they're going to. Final take for me, great answer for Chippewa Valley. 57 points, like I mentioned, over the first 2 games. That's what I like to see. And, Zach, you said it. That is Chippewa Valley football.
Sure.
And Romeo, I'm just going to say it. They're in some trouble if they can't get things sorted out. They have time, and everybody makes the playoffs this year. But, if the goal is just to make the playoffs, congratulations, you've accomplished
Mission
it.
accomplished.
Oh, well, no, not yet. You've got to play 4 games. You're halfway to your goal.
Fair.
You're halfway to your goal. You don't got to win 4 games. You just got to play them. But that's not enough for Romeo. I know that, and so they really have got to hunker down here and figure it out.
Well, here's the thing: they know they're in trouble. This is not a mystery right now. They've watched. If I was the team, I'd be going over a lot of game tape right now and just looking at what's going on the field, what's happening, why are we making these mistakes, what are we missing? Because like I said, I think they're going to do some things week in and week out to kind of switch it up, because they're going to have to, especially going up against a really good Ike defense next week. You don't have a lot of time to figure it out, but I'm still confident that they'll start to find their identity here before we get much further into the season.
Yeah, and look, I too think that that's what they will be able to do. It's got to be sooner rather than later. All right, Zach, one more to go, and we've touched on this one a couple of times. Grosse Pointe South at Eisenhower. Look, the Blue Devils are 2-0 in the MAC Red. It's the way to make an entrance, and it doesn't really matter what the score in the first 2 games is now. Certainly going forward, they'll have to be more efficient offensively as well. This one, and Zach, you look at Grosse Pointe South and some of the things that they've done and not done offensively. Regardless, they've got their way through it, and they are 2-0 to start the Red. And, Tim Brandon told me, it doesn't matter where we are, what division we're in, what conference we're in, our expectations remain the same. We're going to come out, play our brand of football, and if we do what we know we're capable of, we're going to win football games. That's where we are.
Well, he says it and he delivered. Let's be honest. This is not – you're going from a whole different caliber of opponent that you have to see week in and week out. Grosse Pointe South shows that they can compete.
Yeah.
It's clear now. They're 2-0 to start out in division play, which is the only play we've had thus far.
It's the only play you're going to get this far, till the end at least.
They, arguably though, they've gotten the 2 teams that are probably on the bottom now of the Red. They still have to go up against Chippewa Valley, Stevenson, and Dakota. If they start winning there, then I don't even know what the heck's going on in the Red now. This is going to be really confusing if they start winning those games, because I think they're going to see more of a challenge in the next few games than they got in the first 2.
Well, and it's interesting. You look at Eisenhower, and they had the better, ultimately, as far as production goes, the better offensive night. They had 148 yards to Grosse Pointe South's 104. The problem is Eisenhower had 4 turnovers. They had way too many mistakes. And at the end of the day, they were worn down by Grosse Pointe South. And Eisenhower is going to win games by being the one that wears the other team down. And so that to me is going to be an issue. And Eisenhower would surprise me, though I don't know the ins and outs. I'm not going to claim to be an expert. But they went away. Kyle O'Reilly had 93 passing yards. He went 7 for 13 in the first week. They made a quarterback change. I don't know if there was an injury. It doesn't sound like it. They made a quarterback change early, and Preston Crum threw 8 of 19, 103 yards. Kyle O'Reilly went 2 of 3. I'm not exactly sure what brought that on. It ended up with, they got more quarterback production, but they have 10 points.
Zack,
in
10
2
points
weeks.
in
I know.
2 games.
I'm not here to defend. I'm not here to defend the offense.
10 points in 2 games. I mean, that
I'm not defending it.
There's no team that's put up less than that even in their first game. I don't think. You know what I mean? I think everybody put up more points in just one game alone. Right?
Yes.
I think Stevenson had 10.
Romeo had 14.
Yeah. I mean, you can't win games that way. I mean, you're not going to. You can't. And you look at, even though Romeo's lost their first 2 games, they put up 31 points in those 2 games. So you're looking at these stats and
giving up 61.
That's a lot.
Romeo, yeah.
That's a lot. So I mean, but if Romeo can get their defense to click, what's going to happen in that Eisenhower game?
Could you also make the argument that if Eisenhower is going to kickstart their offense, it will happen in this game against a really bad Romeo defense?
You
can make both arguments
for sure. That's why it's yes, it's a battle of the bottom next week for Romeo and Eisenhower, but I kind of feel like it's going to be a really interesting game. You're going to get 2 teams.
Romeo Eisenhower, of course, it'll be a good. Come on,
rivalry week, but it's one of those things, Zach, where one of these teams is going to find out what kind of football team they are, for better or worse.
I think they're both going to find it out for better or worse. And I think that's going to be something that one coach is going to be not happy about. But Zach, here's the thing. I don't remember exactly when Eisenhower's offense got rolling last year, because we went through this.
I think it was like by week 4.
So again, you don't have the same amount of time to figure it out.
No.
But you do have enough time to where you're going to make the playoffs no matter what. And so they can still figure this out offensively.
No doubt.
My expectation for that is starting to drop a little bit. I'm not saying they can't, but that defense act is still super stingy. I mean, Anthony Cardamone and those dudes, I mean, they are it's so difficult to get anything done. And you look at the Blue Devils, 17 points, but 7 of those came on a defensive score in the last minute. So, it's not as if they were able to run it up on Eisenhower and do much more. And who are these kids in this league where they're just banging out 42, 43-yard field goals? A kid from Grosse Pointe South had like a 43-yard field goal. I think we've had at least 3 kickers hit field goals over 40 yards in 2 weeks. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
you can't get college kickers to do that with consistency.
Hey, there's something in the water. I don't know what it is, but they're booting them.
Got to be careful with what's in the water around here. I'll leave it at that. Final take here. Grosse Pointe South here to play Zach, and the Mac Reds on notice. You can say whatever you want about, and we have. Like, I still feel like if you're a Grosse Pointe South Blue Devil and listening, you're saying we are not getting enough credit. You are correct. You are correct.
We apologize.
We do not apologize.
I apologize.
Okay. Well, Zach is everybody knows Zach is so much nicer than I am. I do not apologize. But I mean, God, this league is just so tough.
Yeah.
It's just because, and it's Grosse Pointe South has made the difference in just how tough this is. I'm not saying it wasn't tough last year, but now,
you've got a competitive game week in and week out. There's no gimmies anymore. There's no, because let's be honest, last year Anchor Bay was usually a gimme.
They didn't win a game in 2 years. So, I don't think there's much of an argument there. And look, for Eisenhower, it's pretty simple. The offense has to get in gear. You can't expect a shutout, and even a shutout only gives you a 0-0 tie you play into infinity. And so their offense, that's it.
What do you, if you're going to the locker room, whether you're Eisenhower or Romeo right now, you're both at 0-2 in a weird season. You got the formidable opponent in each other coming up next week. What are you telling your team right now in the locker room?
I think it's a couple things. First of all, it's even if it's a shortened season, it's a long season. We're only 2 games in. All of the goals that we want to accomplish are still in front of us. You can still win the Red. You're going to make the playoffs if you can get to the 4-game threshold. All you got to do is play 4. And if you make the playoffs, which you're going to have a shot at a run, right? So all of that is still in front of these guys. But it's not going to happen if play does not improve. And if I'm if I'm Rhinus, the injury thing, it concerns me, but I think you have to show kids, especially if you look back just a year, both these teams had good regular seasons. You don't have to look far back. There were kids on these teams that played last year, certainly, and you have to remind them what it takes to win, and I think also what it feels like to win. You can't simulate that, but call on their memory and remind them what it takes. They know. It's not as if Kurt has to walk in, or the same is true for Chris Smith, and walk in and be like, hey, here's how football works, and here's what you need to. They need to remind them that they know how this works, and if they play their own brand of football, good things will come. This is not Romeo football that we've seen. It's a Romeo football team playing football, but the first 2 games has not been Romeo football. And so if he can get in there and remind his team what they are, who they are, it'll be okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Easier said than done.
Either one of these teams could have easily been sitting at 2-0.
At least 1-1.
At least one. If they would have just a little more energy, little more effort, and finish that game. I mean, that those games have to be played for 4 quarters. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it's true. You can't just start hot and then take all the wind out of your sails.
Right. And that is what we saw with, again, there's this, they hit this section somewhere in the second quarter towards halftime. It's unusual. I'm not exactly sure why we see what we see, but Zach, we've seen it. So, I mean, again, let's run it down one more time. Stevenson beats Dakota 12-7. Chippewa Valley over Romeo 37-17. Grosse Pointe South beats Eisenhower 17-7. That means Stevenson and Grosse Pointe South tied at the top 2-0. Tied third, Dakota and Chippewa Valley. And at the bottom, tied 6, Eisenhower and Romeo.
And who knows what's going to happen next week, but we're going to be previewing everything.
Well, I'll tell you, here's what we can look ahead to, Zach. I mean, you get Chippewa Valley at Stevenson. We've talked a lot about Stevenson. We've talked about the way Chippewa Valley responded in week 2. Great test for both of these teams. That game will be in Sterling Heights. Dakota and Grosse Pointe South. Look, Grosse Pointe South's feeling good. That game's at home. Dakota, a little ornery probably after the way that they played in week 2. And then, you get Eisenhower at Romeo, first time at Barnabo for the Bulldogs this season. That both of these teams in desperate need of a win. So, I mean, again, another exciting week sits ahead in the MAC.
I think it's going to be, Romeo's going to be thankful that they've got a home game this week. They need. I think they need it. I think they need it.
That's a great point, Zach, and we'll talk about this more in the next episode. But you're absolutely right in that Romeo's had to do all this on the road. You get a reset. You can give them a little speech that you and I just talked about, and then tell them to go out at home and make it right. So we'll be back on Wednesday, as always. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, 32andmain.com.
Thanks for listening to the Mac Attack with Zack and Zack. For more, visit 32andmain.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Mac Attack Pod. And don't forget to like the Mac Attack with Zack and Zack on Facebook. The Mac Attack is a proud member of the 32 and Main Network.